Hi guys, this is video 1-3, our lesson on multi-step equations involving distributive property. Okay, so distributive property is a way to multiply more than one thing that is being added or subtracted or combined in any way. Okay, so parentheses mean we're multiplying. Anytime you see parentheses, you got to think of multiplying, but distributive property, there's more than one thing to multiply. So you got to distribute to everything inside those parentheses. So this was a poster made by another teacher, and I really loved it because it's a perfect way to think of distribution. We all like to eat ranch on pizza and buffalo wings, or it's a common thing. If you don't like it, it's a common thing. You've probably seen somebody do it. So we can eat ranch on pizza and buffalo wings. But that's another way to say that is I like to eat ranch on pizza and I like to eat ranch on buffalo wings. So we're taking both things and putting ranch on it, right? Oops. Okay, other things that we might call distributive property is called the rainbow because we like to draw some arcs. Oh, I did the wrong thing. There we go. So we like to draw some arcs like this here. Is when we have some distributive property things like this. We like to say that we distribute and we draw some rainbows, some arcs that look like this to show that we're multiplying to both things in the parentheses. Sometimes we call it the mailman because the mailman delivers a package to each term in the parentheses. Okay. So if we think about distributive property, think about the order of operations. And does it matter if we multiply each thing in the parentheses first, or if we add them in the parentheses and then multiply? Okay. So first, I'm going to erase this. Okay, so we're going to take this example here. And if we use just the order of operations, the order of operations says I have to do what's in the parentheses first, right? So I would add 3 plus 4. And I would get 7 inside my parentheses. And then what's left over to do is the multiplication. Parentheses means to multiply, so 8 times 7 equals 56. Okay. So now let's think about it in terms of distribution. We're going to do the rainbow thing, right? So we're going to multiply 8 times 3 is 24. Still in the process of getting this pin fixed. And then we're also multiplying 8 times 4. So we add 8 times 4 is 32. Now if we add those together, 24 plus 32 gives me this pin, 56. Okay, so either way, if I follow the order of operations or if I distribute, I'm getting the same answer. So it doesn't change my answer. And this is very important to know in algebra because when we have letters and variables in our parentheses here, we can't add those things together first. And the only thing we can do to help simplify is to actually distribute into each term there. Okay. So if we had changed our expression to 8 times 3x plus 4, we would have to in order to simplify this, because we can't add what's in the parentheses, in order to simplify, we just do distribution. So we do 8 times 3x plus 8 times 4, following the yellow arrow. And then 8 times 3x gives us 24x. 8 times 4 gives us 32. It is adding in between those. And then these are not like terms, and this is as far as we can simplify here. All right, so translating words, we have to express in expressions with variables or sometimes equations. Gotta get my pen here, sorry. So we 3 times the product of an integer and 7. So you gotta think about operation words. What are the operation words? Times means multiply, right? And the product also means multiply. Okay, and then an integer. The integer is going to tell us, that's another word for a variable. I'm going to call it x. Normally we say we want a variable that represents what it is, and you might think I for integer, but in algebra we're going to stay away from that letter I, and you'll find out why in algebra 2. Okay, and then we have a number 7 here. All right, so we start with our operation words, and we start with the last operation word. So our last operation word is product. Product means I'm multiplying an integer and 7. If I do it as it says in the order it's written, that means I'm multiplying x and 7. But if you think about this, 7x is the same thing, and you don't have to worry about that little dot, and it takes up less room too. So we're going to write it as 7x, but it's 3 times the product of this. 3 times the product of that. So we're also going to take this and multiply by 3. And remember, we're working backwards, so we're going to write in front of what we have. So we're doing 3 times the product of an integer and 7. Okay, now that we have parentheses here, we're multiplying the 3 into the parentheses. 3 times 7 gives me 21. And then I have the variable x that's got to stay to represent my integer. Okay, 21x. All right, number 2. 4 times the sum of n squared and 9. So times means multiply, sum means you're going to add, and squared means you're going to have an exponent of 2. So our last operation word is an exponent squared here of n squared. N squared, we have to do n squared first. Okay, and 9. What and 9? Well, the sum of n squared and 9. So we had our n squared. The sum means we're going to add it. Okay, and then sum, we want to keep this group together as a sum, so I'm going to use parentheses to group it together. And then 4 times that sum, so we need to multiply times 4, but remember our parentheses also mean multiply. So we're just going to do 4 parentheses n squared plus 9 is our expression. There's no equal, and then we can distribute to simplify that. So we do 4 times n squared. Anytime there's a variable, you're just going to put that number with your variable. And then 4 times 9 is 36, and that's a plus in between. And there's our expression. All right, last translating, we have 6 times, there's our operation word, the difference is an operation word of n and 9. Okay, so there's 2 operations. Difference is another word for subtract. What are we subtracting? We're subtracting n and 9. N and 9. Okay, and when there's more than one operation word, we always want to group that together with the parentheses to make that the group is a difference. Okay, now we want to do 6 times that difference. So we do 6, and we're working backwards, so you're going to place it in front. 6 parentheses also means times, so your parentheses are serving 2 purposes here. We're grouping the difference together, and then we're also showing that it's being multiplied. Okay, so here's our expression, and then go ahead and simplify it using the distributive property. So we do 6 times n, it's just a number and a letter, we just put them together. Six n, and then it's a minus 6 times 9 is 54. All right, so there's our translated sentences from English to math, new language. All right, and our last slides, I think, yep, I'm not lying, our last slides. Okay, I'm gonna do the left-hand side, you do the right-hand side, and then you will get quizzed on these tomorrow. I gotta get my pen ready. All right, number 1, we're gonna distribute 2, that's not working well. Okay, 2 times x, 2 times x. Anytime there's a number with a variable, we just write it down together. They come together. All right, and then we also want to multiply to the other thing in the parentheses. 2 times 7. There's a plus in between, so we're going to write a plus. 2 times 7 is 14. And we're not changing anything with this equals 28. All right, and then we have a 2-step equation that we need to solve. Okay, so here's our variable, and then we want to do the opposite of what's attached. We have a minus or a plus 14, so we want to subtract 14 on both sides of the equation, so we keep it equal. Okay, and then we'll cross this out. We'll come back to that later. Okay, so this cancels, and we bring down our 2x. And 14's canceled. We're going to bring down the equal. 28 minus 14 is 14. Okay, then we have our variable. It's still being multiplied by 2, so we want to do the opposite and divide by 2 on both sides of our equation to keep it balanced. So my 2's will cancel and I'm left with the x. And I get x equals 14 divided by 2 is 7. All right, so there's the answer to number 1, x equals 7. Okay, let's see. We want to get some pretty colors in here. Okay, I see parentheses. So order of operations says I want to distribute those. And it has to go to everything in the parentheses, right? So we do 5 times x, put them together because it's just a number and a variable come together. And then we also have a -2. You can think of it as a -2, or you can think of it as a minus in between there. And then 5 times 2 is 10. Okay. All right, now I still have this plus 2 on the plus 2x on the outside. And it equals -3. We didn't change any of that. Okay, now I need to solve my equation. So I see an x here and an x here. So I'm going to combine those like terms. 5, and then thinking of the sign in front of my term, 5x plus 2x. 5 plus 2 is 7. The variable is x. It stays the same. Okay, and then there's also this minus 10 there that I can't forget about. I got to bring it down. And then I still have an equals -3 on the other side of that equals. Okay, now it's a two-step equation, and we can do those. Okay, so there's our variable. We want to look at what's attached. We're subtracting, so the opposite of subtract would be to add 10 on both sides. So that 7x is going to come down. That's supposed to be an arrow. I might make my 15 minutes if my pen worked, huh? 7x. -10 plus 10 cancels. That makes a 0. I'm going to bring down my equals. -3 plus 10. It's a positive and negative, different sign. So you subtract those numbers. 10 minus 3 is 7. And 10's bigger, so we're going to keep it positive. All right, now our variable is still being multiplied by 7. So the opposite would be divide. Divide by 7 on both sides. So 7 cancels and we just get an x equals 7 divided by 7 is 1. And number 2 is done. The you do on number 2 right across from it should be very similar, and that is for you to work out there. Okay, and our last but not least, number 3. This is a tricky one because we have a minus 3m minus and then parentheses. So this minus or negative 3m, since it's nothing in front, we call it a negative 3, is not being multiplied times this. It's the minus in front is being multiplied. So we need to think about this as an invisible 1 in front of the parentheses, but it's a minus. And I kind of wrote over that, but it's a minus. So it's like distributing a negative 1 into those parentheses, okay? So I'm going to distribute a negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 4 is a positive 4. Two negatives make a positive. And then we're also taking this imaginary negative 1, not imaginary, invisible negative 1, and multiplying by this negative. I know it's a minus 4m, but we're going to treat it like a negative. So negative 1 times a negative 4m. Multiplying two negatives make a positive, so we're making a positive. 1 times 4 is 4, and we got our variable m. Okay, but I still have this negative 3m. And that was a positive 4 after we distributed, so I forgot to write the positive there. Positive is going to make it look like a plus. Okay, and then my other side of the equal sign, all this over here stays the same, so I have equals negative 1. Okay, so now I have an equation, no parentheses, just some variables and numbers to combine and solve for m. Okay, so I see an m here and an m here. Since they're both just m, I'm going to combine those. I can add those together, right? So I have a negative 3 and plus 4m. Negative 3 plus 4 gives me a 1m or just an m. If you like writing that 1 in front, feel free to do so. Okay, and then this plus 4 is still there. I'm going to make the color the same just so it's easy to see. Okay, that got combined into here, so we use that, and then we still have the equals negative 1 here. Now I just have a one-step equation because that's an m by itself, right? And to our variable, we are adding 4, so we want to do the opposite and subtract 4 on both sides to stay balanced and equal. Okay, so when I bring down my m, 4 minus 4 cancels out, makes a 0. I bring down my equal, negative 1 minus 4. Now we can also think of this as a plus negative 4, right? So we're adding two negative numbers, and negative 1 plus negative 4, they're the same sign, so we add them together and we keep the same sign. Okay, you can always double check your calculator on these integer problems too. And our answer is m equals negative 5. All right, my last little tip here. I have a dog, and her name is Daisy, and she likes to go for walks. All right, keep that in mind, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.